Hey, what's up guys? Tuki here, back again, and welcome to the official beginning of my new Buffalo Bills franchise mode series right here on Madden 19. It's going to take a while to get used to, but indeed, let's get this underway. Now, a few things before we get started. Number one, I have technically restarted this. What I've done, EA released a roster update, and some people didn't necessarily agree with using the franchise guys' work in progress rosters. So I've gone ahead and we're going to be using Madden's most recent roster update as of August the 11th. We will, however, be using the franchise guy's custom draft class. That's going to be a thing. Now, as far as the roster goes, I think what we're going to be looking to do, for the most part, is maybe staying the course, maybe improving the team in some ways. As far as trading certain players, I mean, obviously right now, and I swear, I feel like the menu's glitched because that part of the menu was gigantic. You know, there was talk over trading potentially LaShawn McCoy if the season doesn't go that well. 30-year-old running back, might not be the worst time to get rid of him. It depends on how the season goes. I am not against trying to keep this team in the playoffs. I did something similar with the Toronto Blue Jays series on MLB, where, you could argue maybe rebuilding, retooling is the better way to go. If I can keep a team competitive, I'm going to do it. So we'll see what happens in that regard. However, one thing that I want to mention, and for some reason this was really messing up for me. There we go. That's what I was trying to get to the whole time. Kyle Williams. Sacrilege, I was told, to trade Kyle Williams. Now look, I know, a Bill through and through. Maybe it's just the Boston Bruins fan in me to have seen Ray Bork go to a different team and win. I'd rather see one of my favorite players go to a different team and win than stay here and never win anything. Maybe that's just me. Will we win while Kyle Williams is here? Maybe. If we're terrible this season and I can trade him to a contender, you bet your ass I'm doing it as a favor to him, not just because, well, he's a longtime Bill and I want to piss people off. So we will see what happens there. The first step here is going to be, of course, to look over the free agent list and to see what we're dealing with, because, of course, the free agent list might be slightly different, including Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie being available there. That could be somewhat interesting. As far as quarterbacks go, unless there is someone that magically has quick development, we're going to be fine, of course, with McCarron and Josh Allen. I'll probably start Allen, unless he has just a miserable preseason. We might use that as a little bit of a measuring stick. As far as running backs go, again, I think we're good, unless Darkwa has good development, which he does. He does. I wouldn't mind him being the backup. Maybe get rid of Ivory and probably Cadet. I'm not opposed to getting Darkwa onto this team. He's a power back. He fits the current scheme. Don't know if we'll keep that scheme. We'll see what the ratings end up being. For the moment, I'm going to sign Darkwa, and more than likely he'll end up being one of our guys this season. Paul Perkins, do you have quick development? You do not. What about Keith Marshall? You do not. I don't think I'm going to look for anybody below a 70. More than likely, especially when we already have LaShawn McCoy, and of course we just brought on Darkwa, who's looking pretty good. Tion Green, also not looking that great. Muhammad, quick development? No. Okay, so we're good there. Fullbacks, John Coons there. I mean, we have DeMarco, unless Stevenson has quick development. Yeah, we're good. I think we'll just stick with DeMarco for this season. Wideout options, though. Now, this is where it's interesting, of course, because we do have Coleman on the team now. We have Benjamin at an 84, Curley and Coleman at 77. However, there's not a single wideout on this roster right now that has quick development. So I can't help but think it might just be for the God, don't I love having to make weird jump cuts. I can't help but think that it might be for the best to bring in a Jeremy Maclin, to bring in a Dez Bryant, just to bump up this team a little bit, unless Jordan Matthews has quick development, or Brandon Coleman. They do not. So nobody with quick development, unless Malcolm Mitchell's good to go, which I can't imagine. I was going to say, having seen Malcolm Mitchell play quite a bit, I'm going to guess he's not quick development. I think we might just splash the cash a little bit and look to bring in a Maclin or a Dez Bryant. Do we want to bring in the craziness of Dez Bryant? Jeremy Maclin, of course, 30 at this point. In fairness, let's look. So we have a deep threat, we have a red zone threat. How is everybody else set up at the moment? Let's take a look. Let's not bring in anybody that doesn't need to be brought in, right? Let's see what we're dealing with here. Benjamin. What do we got here? Not as much of a deep threat, really, with the 85 speed. I'm going to guess, just based on how we're set up here, it's probably not going to matter. We could look to bring in either or. So let me take a look at the money total again. I don't know what's up with that and why the prompt is gigantic. Both are looking for 5.4 million. Curley, Coleman, Holmes, Jones, and getting the guys like Streeter. I'm gonna go for Des Bryant just because he's a scheme fit at this point. We'll give him 1 year. 5.4 cap hits, not that bad. We got $30 million in funds. I mean, cap-wise, we should be fine anyway. No guarantees that I keep him. I might cut him before the start of the season, but we're going to look to bring him in, again, for the reason of if we can stay competitive, I swear to God, if one more person outside fires up an engine, the amount, I'm continuing though, don't worry. Tight end wise, we have Clay, we have O'Leary. O'Leary has quick development. I want to keep him for that reason and use him a bit more reliably. So I don't think we're going to bring in anybody else unless Troy Nicholas has good development, which he does not. So tight end, we're good. Left tackle, we have Dawkins, and yeah, there's unless somebody here has quick development, preferably one of the 267s. Yeah, we don't need to bring anybody there. Left guard, is it Ducasse or Ducase? I'm going to go with Ducase. Regardless, he doesn't have quick development, but Richie Incognito's there. Oh, God. Right. You know, I think I might. We could get rid of him if we wanted to. We might see how the 74 that we have now happens to do, but we don't have anybody great at left guard. I mean, if we don't go with Incognito, we're going with a 74 overall. At center, there's nobody better anyway. I guess Bodine will be our guy unless we move somebody over. Jack Muhort, tremendous name. We have a 73 overall at right guard at the moment. Quick development. Yeah, at 26, we're bringing this guy in for sure. It's a somewhat rough cap hit. We should be able to afford it, though, especially when you factor in some of the other guys we're going to be getting rid of, potentially. And at right tackle, currently we have a 72, not with quick developments. Probably we'll just stick with Mills instead of bringing in Derek Newton. Let me take a look at Alexander here. Quick development, no. And that is basically it. Moving over to the defense. At left end, we're currently running with Murphy at an 81. There's nobody decent worth bringing in unless Caleb Kidder has decent development. He does not. Right end, we have Hughes. And I see no reason to, hold on, let's actually look at right end. I thought I hit the button twice. Jonathan Hankins is there, who would be a 1-point improvement. Of course, you could argue, though, sign Hankins and potentially move him over to defensive tackle. Of course, we have Kyle Williams and Lutelele. I've never been good at pronouncing his name. You know who I'm talking about, though. It's fine. I think we're good, really. I mean, we have Murphy and Hughes. Lawson's there as the depth option. Bringing in Hankins would just be a little bit of overkill. We have Jerry Hughes for the spot, and I think we're good. Although, you could argue Hankins would be the long-term replacement, potentially, for a Jerry Hughes. God, I'm tempted, because we could move Hughes to linebacker. You know what? I might sign Hankins for the moment, too. I think we might get to be a little bit crazy. I want to see what this... And again, we could cut these guys from these contracts, no questions asked. I want to see what this team looks like, though, if we sign these high-profile guys. Defensive tackle, we're good. Does Malik McDowell have good development? He does not. That's unfortunate. Let's get to the linebackers. We, of course, have Alexander. He's a 78 at the moment. So I'm really seeing no reason to sign anybody here, unless Joshua Perry is worth picking up, which he's not. Let's see. Actually, we can look at the middle, where we have Edmonds, who's a 75 at the moment, but does have that quick development. I think for that reason, I'd want him to play. Doesn't necessarily mean that Navarro Bowman wouldn't be worth picking up. So we'll take a look with him there. And outside linebacker, we have Milano at a 76, so we're good to go. I was hoping someone would be here with quick development or better. That's, of course, unlikely For corners, we have White leading the way. No other players with quick development, though. So obviously, a Webster or Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie would be amazing, and Webster having that quick development, I mean, that's one person that I'm more than all right with bringing in. Having White, Webster, and Davis, that's a solid triple threat there. Is there a prospect, so to speak? Sanchez or Coleman would be great. I'm not going to guess that I'm going to get lucky there, though. I am not. That's okay. Safety, we have Poyer at an 89, so we are more than fine. Looking like there's no one worth signing anyway. And, of course, we have Hyde at a 92. So we are also good to go, unless Harlan Miller is worth signing. He is not. Hauschka, I imagine, will stay as our starting kicker. Although Young Ho Koo is there. Someone pointed out signing him, but I see no reason to with him just being normal development. And then Schmidt at a 74. We'll keep Brad Wing there. So, just to recap, because if I were to move forward, we're still going to have to cut 6 players anyway. This defense would go from, I believe it was an 81 to an 85, which obviously would be quite helpful, to say the least. Let me take a look, though, at what we're dealing with here as this team is set up at the moment. So quarterbacks, we can keep the 3 on roster for the moment. Running backs, after signing Darkwa, again, we'd probably look to see if we could move Ivory, and then from there, Cadet and Jones could go. Maybe keep him, maybe move out Murphy instead. I mean, I'm 100% set on this signing of having Darkwa here. He's also a scheme fit, a little bit more potential. Would he be able, in theory, to go up 3 overall points in 4 years? One would hope. Of course, development doesn't really seem to go for that long. But that I'm 100% set on. I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to go crazy with changing up the roster immediately. If you watch other franchise modes that I do, I normally don't. But a signing like that, not taking advantage of it for the sake of not taking advantage of it when other AI, when the AI-controlled teams can change up their team immediately, doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, now does it? I'm actually going to keep Cadet, and we'll add Jones. So McCoy, Darkwa, and Cadet will look to be the main 3 here. Is anyone that has a lot of interest in Ivory? The Bucks do. As it is, they have to cut players. We still have $45 million in cap room, too, which is absurd. How are we looking in terms of that level of interest? Like, are we talking first round? Not quite. But even a second or third round pick would be tremendous. How's a second round pick looking? Also, no. I mean, I'm not going to be upset about, say, a 3rd and a 7th from Tampa for 3 running backs who we're not going to use. And technically, Ivory, we're downgrading with Darkwa, but we're trying to hope for the future ever so slightly. Will that go through? I'd be down for it. They're down for it. There you go. Have fun with Chris Ivory. And running back-wise, we are set. We're going to go with McCoy, Darkwa, and Travaris Cadet. Quarterback-wise, again, we'll probably cut Peterman. Fullback, we're good. Wide out, Benjamin, Bryant, Curley, Coleman. And from there, as mentioned, we don't have any players that actually have half-decent developments. So Clay, I can't imagine you have any value. I'm just going to more than likely outright release you. Why not? We'll pay that cap penalty. That's fine. I think we probably want to balance 5 or 6 on roster. So really, Streeter, McLeod, Prohl, and Dupree could all go, and I'm perfectly fine with that. If we have to pay any penalties, so be it. But yet again, if I don't sign Des Bryant, someone's going to. So screw it. I want to keep this team competitive, and this is by far the best way that we can. Rayler McLeod, I know he's 21. With that normal development, though, I just don't think I want to waste time. If someone has normal development, but they're like a 78 around 21 to 24 years old, sure. I just don't really see him developing. So I will take the cap penalty there as well. And again, we're going to look to balance the 75s and up. So unfortunately, some of the rookies here, I just don't have interest in keeping. I really don't. So we are going to change up the team ever so slightly. And by ever so slightly, I mean technically we're going to take advantage of some of the improvements. And really, those guys were going to be cut anyway. We weren't going to keep them. It's not like Des Bryant was taking the job of many, I mean, one at best. So, not a big deal. Tight end-wise, we also have a ton of guys signed. Again, Clay, O'Leary, and probably Kari Lee. I don't really see a reason to change that up. So, between Thomas, Tobridge, Kroom, and Ferguson, and again, I can't help but think, of course, that it just signs a bunch of guys. When you say you want to start in the preseason, we can go ahead and ditch these guys as well. For someone like Tobridge, like I said, he might develop. Not really interested in being the one that's going to try and develop him. We're here to stay competitive. We're here in terms of developing players. We're here to actually develop guys who have a good chance of making it. So with that, I believe we have cut at the very least our 6 players. We are, of course, going to have to get rid of more. But that will lead us to our first preseason game. By default, we are on the best lineup possible, which is pretty nice. Scheme fit, though, let's take a look. If we were to leave this roster as is, McDermott set to multiple power runs, a 60% fit, 75, 78, a couple of 78s, right. So, vertical zone run, which... yeah, I mean, not sure if I want to rely so much on the play action, but it would technically fit the scheme. Our offensive line, not exactly what we would be looking for, though, in that sense. Run and shoot could work as well. Offensive line's a little bit better, tiny bit better, but I kind of want to rely a little bit more on the run. Of course, we're not set up to really have a scrambler. The roster scheme fit is at 3, but again, the agility doesn't really match up. So let's see, the 75s, we have power run, multiple zone run, which, again, can't help but think, maybe vertical power run's the best way to go. From the looks of it, I'm mainly worried about the offensive line. At the very least, 3 out of 5 would be set up in a pretty strong way. You know, I kind of like the looks of that, I think. And then multiple 4-3, we're an 80% fit. 86% on the base 4-3, 90 on the 4-6, which is a tiny bit risky, I would suppose. But it does fit the team at the moment. So I think we might change that over as well. Let me know what you think there. And I do suppose it depends on how we end up doing throughout the season, and of course what the final team ends up looking like. Again, what is up with that just being gigantic? I don't understand. Unless they change that via patch between when I streamed earlier and when I'm recording this now, which I suppose they could have. I want to make sure tickets are already at a good value. I want to bump that up. I want the maximum price for good value. We're here to make sure that people end up spending some money. You can have the argument of a lot of people spending a little bit of money or a few people spending a lot of money. You're gonna make money regardless, but we're gonna go easy on the prices. We want people to show up. We want people to spend some money. That is the way we're gonna set things up here. So, the fun stuff of setting up fan prices, which or food prices in general. Which, hey, say what you want. Wow, we don't have anything for concessions. That's probably something we should focus on. Really? We've been here for this long and we don't have a good enough concession set up. Interesting. First preseason game is against the Panthers. Let's go ahead and sim that. We'll see what happens. Let's jump to next week, and we'll be able to debate what things are looking like here. As we lost that game 20-10 preseason, though I'm not too concerned. Week 1 against the Ravens is, of course, my main concern. Go ahead and sim this as well. I'm pretty much just waiting to have to cut more players here. We know it's coming. So we lost 31-17 to the Browns in preseason. Is that a good sign? Probably not. There we go. Now we got to cut 16 players. That's what I was waiting for. But we do have an injury. How severe and to whom? Philip Gaines. 72 overall, 7 weeks. He was probably someone I was tempted to cut anyway. In terms of corners, He was our third best, actually. That's not someone I was looking to cut. Technically fourth best after the signing. So that's a little bit unfortunate. We're pretty much going to have to keep him on roster, too. Don't necessarily know if I want to put him on IR immediately, but let's go ahead and take a look. We have 69 players on this roster. We need to cut it down to 53. We'll see what we can do. Quarterback-wise, again, we're probably not going to carry Peterman. Running back, still happy with where we are. Daquad, a 77. Wideouts, still happy. We can get rid of probably Andre Holmes. I think he'd have a little bit of value. Jones would have a little bit more value. Tight end, we're good. Left tackle with Dion Dawkins. We are good. Left guard. Now, of course, with Richie Incognito being here, that creates a little bit of an interesting situation. Again, we have a weakness on the offensive line with Russell Bodine, with Muhort. I mean, granted, it was worse with Miller, but now we have Muhort here that's looking a little bit better, and we have Jordan Mills. You could argue that it would be worth keeping Incognito and moving him over to either center or right tackle. Now, just to double check what his overall would be in those two spots, let's find out, shall we? So if we were to move Incognito, if we were to keep Incognito, because there's a chance of that not happening, at a center, he'd still be an 85. So I'm guessing everything's pretty much universal this year, which it wasn't in previous years, from what I remember. So that's the big question. What do we want to do with this offensive line? I'm going to leave that up to you guys. That'll be pretty much the last thing we change about this team before finalizing the roster, is that do we keep Richie Incognito? If we don't, we will make the most of the players that we have on roster now, and I'll make those final cuts. And then let's see, at left end, again, I still like that we have Murphy and Lawson. Jonathan Hankins, though, is the interesting one, where, again, if we take a look at our linebacker options, you could argue we have a little bit of a weakness on the right-hand side. Milano, not quick development, only normal development. He's not bad, and of course normal development doesn't mean that he can't hit an 80 overall. But I do want to see, if I were to move Jerry Hughes out to that right side, he's an 83 as a right end. What would Jerry Hughes look like as an outside linebacker? That is my question. Let's take a look. 81. Is it worth having Jerry Hughes, or potentially somebody else, move to right outside linebacker to keep Jonathan Hankins? Probably. If we want to kind of cut corners a little bit and make this team slightly better, the answer is yes. But there is also the argument that Shaq Lawson is quick development. And we could simply cut Jonathan Hankins. I mean, really, we could look to do whatever. But, have Murphy as the on the left-hand side, have Shaq Lawson on the right-hand side to try and further his development. What happens with the Hankins from there? What happens with Jerry Hughes from there? Not entirely sure, but we have that option, and it is very much dependent on whether or not we want to take advantage of the free agent signings that are available at defensive tackle. Now, here's the problem. Phillips has quick development, so pretty much John Hughes is going to be on the way out. Washington and Hatley, they're going to be the three that end up going. It's fairly simple. Hughes might have a little bit of value. I doubt it, but there might be a team desperate for help at tackle that we could try to take advantage of here. And of course, they'd end up having to cut the players, and sheesh. At the very least, you could say, well, you should have just taken advantage of the AI more, especially with the wide receivers, and tried to get something out of it. Could have happened, so maybe that's a little bit of a balancing effect. Let's see, how desperate is Cincinnati for Jesus Christ? Well, that happened. Are we cool with that? Because they were apparently cool with it. I normally safety net even first-round picks for that reason. I have the 3 defensive tackles that I want, although you could argue it might be a better idea to trade old Star here and just run Harrison Phillips as our secondary defensive tackle for the sake of his development. But, yeah, that just happened. So on top of our free agent options, which again, we can still go back on, in most cases, You know, if we decide, hey, we don't want Des Bryant, we don't want Richie Incognito, that's fine. I can cut them. That's not a problem, but I wanted to give you a look at what this team would look like with them. Defensive tackle-wise, though, we just picked up a first-round pick from Cincinnati. Are we okay with that? I mean, on one hand, it does seem kind of cheap and ridiculous. On the other hand, fuck Cincinnati. That's right, I said it. So, yeah, we're good there for the moment. Kyle Williams will stay. I'm a little bit worried about Phillips' development. But we could make an extra trade and then just sign some random defensive tackle. So what do you think there? For the tackle spot specifically, do we have Harrison Phillips as the secondary option? Let me know what you think. There's going to be a lot of questions for this episode. A lot. Middle linebacker, you know what? In fairness, I don't think I like Navarro Bowman. I don't think I do. I want Tremaine Edmonds there with his quick developments. You could argue, though, do we move Bowman over to replace Jerry Hughes? Now, here's what I'm not going to do. Of course, I'm not going to trade Bowman and Des Bryant for picks. Like, that's too far. I'm willing to sign them and use them. If we decide that we don't want Navarro Bowman, we're going to release him. Right outside linebacker. For the most part, we're good to go. Easy cut decisions there. Again, nobody with that quick development. At corner, I mean, the injury is a little bit frustrating, but I do like the idea of having White and Webster as the 1-2 punch with Vontae Davis as the third option, especially now with Gaines being injured. Borders and Pitt would be easily removed. Safety, we're good. As far as depth options, I mean, it's a little bit rough. Bush will stay just because developing Neal isn't really worth it. I know he's a rookie, but it's normal development, man. It's just not really worth it. And at the other safety spot, of course, we're pretty much good to go. So that is the big question now in terms of setting up this roster. To be honest, I thought I was just going to be able to start the season in this episode, but there ended up being a lot more questions that we need answered, mainly due to the fact that, again, we have options with free agents. So I want to know, do we keep the Des Bryants of the world? Maybe we keep Des Bryant but ditch Navarro Bowman. Let me know what you think. I want your input in terms of setting up this roster, but we went position by position. Told you guys what I think, what we should look to do. And again, as far as releasing players, once we have that sorted out, it's fairly quick and easy. But for the Des Bryants of the world, the Richie Incognitos of the world, let me know what you think. And of course, we ended up with the Cincinnati first-round pick because it wouldn't be a series of mine without pick hoarding. So I promise, next episode, we truly get this underway. This is typical for series of mine in terms of trying to get your input early on in the early stages of setting up a roster, especially in a game like this where you have the free agent options at the start, and we have a little bit of an identity crisis where we're clearly not true contenders, but there is a chance of us making the playoffs, especially if we sign and keep the majority of these free agents. So I'm going to end this for now. Next episode, we'll make it a decent amount of progress, probably sim up to the trade deadline. I'm thinking that's the way to do it. So for now, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It might not have been everyone's cup of tea, and I get that. It's the way I tend to handle my series, though, kind of slow and steady through the beginning stages. And besides, I'm just, like I mentioned, Madden 18 was my return to the franchise for the first time in almost a decade. Finally bringing a series over to YouTube. It's a little bit different playing this on Twitch compared to having it, an episodic style. So we'll find our groove. And if you stick with this series along with me, I do thank you for that. That'll do it for this one, though. You know the deal. It's YouTube. I gotta tell you, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, share, tell a friend, use a carrier pigeon, telegram, get on the train and tell them, ride a horse into town, take a plane, take a boat, bicycle, tell people, and watch these videos. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time. What an outro.